Fatty Arbuckle. September 5th, 1921. A roaring party at San Francisco's St. Francis Hotel. Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, Hollywood's highest-paid star, is celebrating a break between films. But within days, actress Virginia Rappe is dead, and the scandal that follows will shake Hollywood to its core. William Randolph Hearst newspapers pounce, painting Arbuckle as a villain. The accusation? That he harmed Rappe, leading to her death. But the evidence is murky. The prosecution's key witness, Ma Delmont, the very woman who first reported the alleged crime, is never called to testify. Why? Her history of blackmailing men with similar claims makes her unreliable. Still, the damage is done. Paramount Pictures scrambles to contain the fallout. Arbuckle's films vanish from theaters and executives work behind the scenes to control the narrative. But public outrage is overwhelming. The trial drags through 3 separate proceedings, the first 2 end in hung juries. By the third, the defense dismantles the case, revealing Rappe had chronic health issues, an alternative explanation for her fatal condition. Arbuckle is acquitted, and in a rare move, the jury issues a written apology, declaring there was no proof of a crime. But Hollywood has already decided his fate. Will Hayes, the newly appointed head of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, bans Arbuckle from working in film. Though the ban is lifted a year later, the damage is irreversible. Studios distance themselves, and Arbuckle, once a box office giant, is reduced to directing under pseudonyms, with friends like Buster Keaton quietly helping him find work. His career never fully recovers. The scandal's impact stretches beyond Arbuckle. It fuels the push for stricter moral oversight, leading to the formation of the Hays Office in 1922, the precursor to the infamous Hays Code, which will dictate Hollywood's moral standards for decades. The message is clear: no star is untouchable when public outrage reaches its peak. And while studios will continue to bury scandals for years to come, Arbuckle's downfall proves that sometimes, even Hollywood's most powerful players can't control the story. Albert Dekker. June 5th, 1968. Inside Albert Dekker's Hollywood apartment, a scene so bizarre it could have been ripped from a noir thriller. The 62-year-old actor, famous for The Killers and Dr. Cyclops, was found lifeless in his bathroom, bound, blindfolded, and covered in cryptic lipstick scrawls. The official cause? Accidental asphyxiation. But Hollywood had a way of keeping its messes out of sight, and this was no exception. Dekker wasn't an A-list leading man, but he was a respected character actor with decades in the business. His private life, however, was something the studios had little interest in publicizing. When his fiancée, Geraldine Saunders, discovered his body, the scene was as unsettling as it was perplexing. No signs of forced entry, no valuables missing. Just a locked door and a mystery that refused to sit neatly in the coroner's report. The LAPD ruled out foul play, but speculation spread like wildfire. Some whispered that Dekker had been murdered, the scene staged to humiliate him. Others believed it was a private act gone terribly wrong. Rumors swirled, but the press? They played it safe. The Los Angeles Times ran a sanitized obituary, omitting the more sensational details. Colleagues dodged the topic. The industry moved on. Hollywood had long been in the business of rewriting reality. Studios had covered up far worse: violent assaults, secret addictions, even deaths that were quietly rebranded as accidents. Compared to those, Dekker's case was just another story to sweep under the rug, and they did. His decades of work, his presence on stage and screen, all reduced to whispers and speculation, his final moments carefully edited for public consumption. George Reeves. June 16th, 1959. George Reeves, television's beloved Superman, was found dead in his bedroom, a gunshot wound to the head. Officially ruled self-inflicted, but the details never quite added up. Witnesses in the house reported hearing multiple shots, yet only one bullet was found in Reeves's body. The others? Lodged in the floor, a strange anomaly for a supposed self-inflicted death. Then there was the Hollywood connection. Reeves had been romantically involved with Toni Mannix, wife of MGM executive Eddie Mannix, a man with a reputation for fixing problems, no matter the cost. When Reeves ended the affair to be with Leonore Lemon, tensions reportedly flared. Friends whispered that Toni was devastated, allegedly making threatening calls. And Eddie? His deep ties to the industry, and rumored connections to organized crime, sparked speculation that Reeves's death wasn't as simple as it seemed. But if foul play was involved, the studios had no interest in uncovering it. Warner Brothers and MGM had a vested stake in protecting their stars' images, and a scandal involving Superman would have been disastrous. Police closed the case quickly, despite glaring inconsistencies. No further investigation, no arrests, just another mystery buried beneath the glitz of the golden age. Paul Byrne. September 5th, 1932. Paul Byrne, a respected MGM producer and the husband of Jean Harlow, was found dead in his Beverly Hills home from what was ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But before authorities even arrived, MGM's notorious fixer, Eddie Mannix, was already on the scene. His job? To make sure nothing jeopardized the studio's Golden Girl. The official explanation painted Byrne as a man consumed by shame over his supposed impotence. A handwritten note was conveniently discovered, reading, "Dearest dear, unfortunately this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I've done you and wipe out my abject humiliation. I love you, Paul. You understand last night was only a comedy." But skeptics weren't buying it. Some questioned whether Byrne had even written it at all. Historians later noted discrepancies in the handwriting, and what exactly was the frightful wrong he was referring to. Then came the eerie twist. 2 days later, Dorothy Millette, Byrne's former common-law wife, was found drowned in the Sacramento River. Millette had reportedly struggled with mental illness, and whispers swirled that she had killed Byrne in a jealous rage before ending her own life. But others suspected something far more sinister. That MGM, desperate to keep Harlow's name out of scandal, had orchestrated a cover-up. One thing is certain, the studio controlled the story. The police accepted the self-inflicted death explanation without much scrutiny, and no further investigation was pursued. Harlow was shielded, her career soared, and MGM's profits remained untouched. But decades later, the inconsistencies in Byrne's death still linger, a chilling reminder of how far Golden Age Hollywood would go to protect its biggest stars. Thelma Todd. December 16th, 1935. Thelma Todd, Hollywood's golden girl of comedy, was found lifeless in her car, parked inside her garage along the Pacific Coast Highway. The official story? Carbon monoxide poisoning. But the bruises on her body, the whispered mob ties, and the breakneck speed of the investigation, those paint a murkier picture. Todd wasn't just an actress, she was a powerhouse. Her nightclub, Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, was a hotspot for Hollywood's elite, but it also caught the eye of the underworld. Some say infamous mob boss Lucky Luciano wanted in, allegedly pressuring Todd to let him run illegal gambling out of her establishment. She refused. Days later, she was gone. The police ruled it an accident in record time. No forced entry, no clear signs of struggle, just an unlocked car and an actress who, according to friends, had no known reason to take her own life. But the autopsy revealed unexplained injuries, including facial bruising. And then there's the studio angle. Todd was under contract with Hal Roach Studios, and bad press was bad business. Her final film, The Bohemian Girl, was released posthumously, but any controversy surrounding her death was swiftly buried. Hollywood had a long history of making scandals disappear, and Todd's case fit the pattern. Was there pressure to keep things quiet? Some believe so. Others insist it was simply a tragic accident. Decades later, the truth remains tangled in speculation, lost police reports, and the shadows of old Hollywood's darkest secrets. Lana Turner. April 4th, 1958, Beverly Hills. A scream, a struggle, and then a fatal knife wound. Johnny Stompanato, a mob enforcer with a violent streak, lay dead in Lana Turner's home. The official story? Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed him in self-defense, fearing for her mother's life. But behind the scenes, MGM's publicity machine was already in motion, working to ensure Hollywood's golden girl remained untarnished. Stompanato wasn't just Turner's boyfriend. He was an abusive presence. Friends whispered about bruises, and one former bodyguard later claimed she had tried to leave him multiple times, only to be met with threats. But when the killing happened, MGM didn't just defend Turner. They controlled the entire narrative. Howard Strickling, the studio's powerful head of public relations, mobilized a crisis response, ensuring newspapers framed Cheryl as a terrified child protecting her mother from a dangerous gangster. It worked. The coroner's inquest ruled the killing justifiable homicide, and Cheryl faced no legal consequences. But some weren't convinced. Rumors swirled that Turner herself had wielded the knife, with MGM orchestrating a cover-up to protect their star. Stompanato's family even filed a wrongful death lawsuit, alleging Turner was the real killer. The case was dismissed due to lack of evidence, but the whispers never fully faded. Still, in Hollywood, scandal could be spun into opportunity. Less than a year later, Turner starred in Imitation of Life, a film Universal Pictures marketed as her triumphant comeback. The public, captivated by the real-life drama, flocked to theaters. The movie became one of the biggest hits of 1959, proving that even a murder scandal, if handled correctly, could be a career boost in the studio era. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton had the makings of a Hollywood legend. Striking beauty, undeniable talent, and a contract with Warner Brothers. But in the golden age, image was everything. And when scandal hit, the studios had two choices: clean it up or cut ties. Payton learned the hard way which option they preferred. By 1950, she was starring alongside James Cagney in Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, a title that would prove eerily fitting. Warner Brothers had invested heavily in her, grooming her for stardom. But behind the scenes, Payton was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Her highly publicized affairs with actors Franchot Tone and Tom Neal spiraled into one of Hollywood's most infamous love triangles, one that ended in blood. In September 1951, Neal, in a jealous rage, brutally attacked Tone, leaving him with a fractured cheekbone, a broken nose, and a severe concussion. The fight was so vicious that Tone was hospitalized for days. Warner Brothers scrambled to contain the damage, but the tabloids had already latched onto the story. Payton, once Hollywood's golden girl, was now branded as reckless and volatile. Warner Brothers dropped her, and while she still found roles in low-budget films like Bride of the Gorilla, 1951, the industry's doors were closing fast. The same machine that had built her up now wanted nothing to do with her. With major studios unwilling to take the risk, Payton's career crumbled. As roles disappeared, so did her stability. She turned to alcohol, then sex work, struggling to survive in a town that had discarded her. By the time she published her autobiography, I Am Not Ashamed in 1963, ghostwritten by Leo Guild, she was destitute. According to Guild, she insisted on being paid in red wine instead of money, a claim that, while widely repeated, remains unverified. By 1967, Payton's body had given out. On May 8th, she died of heart and liver failure at just 39 years old. The same studios that once paraded her as their next big star barely acknowledged her passing. Her story became a cautionary tale of how quickly Hollywood could turn its back on those who no longer fit its mold. Errol Flynn. February of 1943. The jury foreman faced the press with a shrug. Frankly, the cards were on the table and we couldn't believe the girl's stories. And just like that, Errol Flynn walked free. But behind the scenes, Warner Brothers had been pulling every string to keep their golden boy from a prison sentence. Flynn, the swashbuckling star of Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood, had been charged with statutory misconduct after two teenage girls, Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterley, accused him of assaulting them at private gatherings. The allegations were damning. Satterley claimed Flynn took her to a secluded cabin on Catalina Island and forced himself on her. But Flynn had something stronger than innocence. A studio with deep pockets and a legal team that specialized in dismantling reputations. His attorney, the famed Jerry Geiler, went to work. Hansen and Satterley were painted as unreliable, their personal lives dragged through the mud. The jury, composed entirely of men, was all too willing to believe the defense. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers worked behind the curtain, ensuring Flynn's image remained untarnished. Public relations teams subtly influenced the press, steering coverage in Flynn's favor. Then came the American Boys Club for the defense of Errol Flynn, a real organization with none other than a young William F. Buckley Jr. among its members. Letters flooded newspapers, framing Flynn as the true victim, a star unfairly targeted by opportunistic women. The studio didn't just sit back and watch, it encouraged the movement, turning Flynn into a symbol of celebrity persecution. And it worked. Not only was he acquitted, but his popularity soared. The phrase, "in like Flynn," became shorthand for effortless success, a bitter irony given the allegations that inspired it. But did Warner Brothers go even further? Some historians speculate that witnesses were pressured, evidence conveniently disappeared, and that the studio strong-armed journalists into keeping Flynn's name clean. While no hard proof has surfaced, Hollywood's history of burying scandals makes it more than plausible. One thing is certain, Flynn's career didn't just survive the scandal, it thrived. And years later, his autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, hinted at even darker secrets that never made it to court. Tom Neal. Hollywood had cleaned up plenty of messes before, but Tom Neal's downfall was too ugly to hide. The star of Detour was no stranger to trouble. His temper was infamous, his fists quick. But it was the 1951 fight over actress Barbara Payton that tanked his career. Neal didn't just throw a punch, he brutalized fellow actor Franchot Tone, leaving him with a broken cheekbone and a concussion. The press ran wild, and studios scrambled to distance themselves. Neil wasn't immediately blacklisted, but his roles dried up fast. By the mid-1960s, he was out of Hollywood, working as a landscaper. Then came the crime no studio could spin. His third wife, Gail Bennett, was found dead from a gunshot wound. Neil insisted it was an accident, but prosecutors weren't buying it. Convicted of manslaughter, he served 6 years before walking free in 1971. Some whispered that his sentence was suspiciously light given his history. Whether Hollywood had a hand in his fate or not, one thing was clear. Even in an era when studios could bury almost anything, some scandals were just too big to disappear. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.